There's the Paramount Mountain, the famous Paramount Mountain with the Friday the 13th music accompanying it. These compilation films that you see at the head of early Fridays, I was opposed to it. I didn't want to use footage from anybody else's show, and I thought that it's sort of chintzy. But in the end, I think it's probably good because something like this Friday the 13th final chapter. Hey, oh, by the way, I'm Joseph Zito, the director of Friday the 13th final chapter, part 4. I think that it's good because most of the people who would see a part 4 or final chapter are fans, and they know these scenes. They know the scene of Adrian King being grabbed, by Jason. So I think now I've come around and changed my opinion of that.
I'm Barney Cohen. I'm the writer of Friday the 13th, the final chapter. I never wrote any of this stuff. Other people wrote it, but I kind of like it.
And we're with Joel Goodman, the editor of the movie, who also, I think, did not actually edit this piece. Is that right, Joel?
I absolutely did not. In fact, when I looked at this just now, after not having seen the picture for a while, I said, "Am I losing my memory?"
Well, this is of course true as well, but yeah, no, this I remember the circumstance here. This was actually put together mostly under the direct supervision of Frank Mancuso Jr., the producer, while we were working on the material which we had shot. Joel Goodman as the primary editor, Dan Lowenthal as an additional editor, and there were others as well. We were working under an amazingly tight post-production schedule, and the show really had to be in theaters just weeks after we had finished shooting. So different sections got assigned to different people, and that's how this came together. So we're sort of seeing this without, a feeling of authorship. Though I always thought it was pretty cool the way Jason put his hands out there. And that Frankenstein-like,
Was this
step
from the
too.
was this from the 3D one?
That I don't know which one. I don't know what came from where.
Because 3D kind of makes directors mad, and they have to play to the 3D, and that looked like a 3D shot.
This thing here, the title is another another grand disappointment. What was supposed to happen was the mask was supposed to break apart. It's supposed to be like the power of Jason just exploding the mask. Because there was no time to really do it right, we got some kind of excuse from the special effects house, and they said, well, we can do this, but not exactly like you're describing it. So it ended up with this explosion behind it, which was sort of weird to me, but not really what we wanted. But there it is. It's kind of strange because I hadn't done explosions in my movies at this point, and then after this did a whole bunch of movies with explosions, wall to wall. But the first one was in the credits of Friday the 13th, Part 4.
One of the things I've noticed is that the filmmakers know what's not in there that they wanted to be in there. The fans don't know that. They just see what's up there and they like it.
Yeah, but the thing is, the reason we sit around and talk about this now is so that fans can figure out, what it is that we didn't do, what we failed at, what we tried to do and didn't end up there. To talk about the movie that it might have been, perhaps, as well as the movie that it is. There you go, Joel.
Joel Goodman.
Yeah, with the bigger credit. Damn, I'm still pissed at you, Joe.
Barney Cohen, thousands cheered.
Thousands cheered, and Barney Cohen came aboard, of course, using characters written by others, because this was Part 4 final chapter, and a story written by Bruce Sacco. I had worked closely with Bruce at the start, and then on the screenplay, Barney took it from there and created everything you see here. This was a really tough, a strange shot for us to do. We wanted to do this in one big master, picking up on the day that Friday 3 ended. So we went back to the actual location where the House of Friday 3 was built, and we did this sort of complex. It was a complicated shot for us, working in a tight budget. I mean, that was a crane that came down, and a guy on a Steadicam got off the crane and went through this place. A real helicopter with the light above, matched over here by our own movie lights. all leading to the place in the barn where Jason died in Friday 3. The idea really was that this was going to be really about the death of Jason. We knew when we started it, and we were told when we started, I should say, that this was the end of the Friday the 13th series, and we would be killing Jason, and he would not be back because the studio had really had enough of it, and they had their fill, and so we could kill him. So I thought if it was really going to be about the death of Jason, it'd be nice to start it on the dead Jason.
Yeah, and Joe told me that I had to do something at the end of this film where the film grammar said, he's really dead. No, he's really, really dead.
Yeah, but there was more to this scene, and I don't remember, conceiving that. I think it was yours. It ended up not being done because of production issues and how difficult it was to do this. But the ambulance actually gets stuck in the mud on the way to the morgue, and there was a scene of Jason back there as they were trying to free the ambulance. We never shot it. We were prepared to shoot it, but in the end, did not shoot it. And once again, dealing with the dead Jason, but keeping him a little scary.
And I think in terms of pace, it's wonderful to start with these big master shots, the steady cam shots that linger. There's plenty of extras, plenty of production value, and it kind of eases you into the picture and gives you a feeling that you're in really good hands as an audience.
That was different, it really was something that the other Fridays that preceded us didn't do because they were tight and closed spaces. So I thought it was a good idea to open it up so that you're in a big wide place in the beginning, and it keeps narrowing down and narrowing down and narrowing down until you're face to face with the beast.
And also, everybody wants to be Orson Welles in Touch of Evil and do this big tracking opening shot.
Yeah, basically it all comes down to director's ego and stuff like that.
You got nothing to be ashamed of, buddy.
Now, this music, composed by Harry Manfredini, was a piece that he did specifically, this funereal piece, which I really love it. I think he did a great job on this. That little clip you just saw of those people crying in the room, those were supposed to be parents of one of the kids killed in part 3, but that got economized. I don't remember if we shot it and tossed it or just tossed it before shooting.
I think it was never shot.
Never shot. We never saw it. Right? Yeah.
Another day shot to hell.
Another day shot. So we're like, a couple of minutes into the show, and we already, missed a few scenes that we wanted to do. One of the things that Barney did here, which I think really helped us a lot, the dialogue of the characters and the way the characters are drawn, I don't know. I find them more interesting to watch on the screen, and it's just a little fresher than what we had seen in genre stuff before, and I think that it made a difference in the way the film plays.
Well, when Joseph started me off, the first thing he told me after telling me that we really do have to kill this guy in this thing was to make characters that seem real, and to eschew sitcom dialogue and just make real people, and then whatever it is we do to them will be that much more horrifying.
You're it.
You see that shot we just oh no, I wanted to look at this shot instead. But you see that shot we just passed of Jason on the gurney, where he moves a little bit. That movement was the actor after I called cut moving, and then we looked at it, and Joel, prevailed upon us to keep that in to try to add a creepiness to the to the corpse.
Well, does it work?
It's hard to say. I mean, I've seen it with audiences, and I watch them squirm, but I don't know if we paced it correctly because we had this coming up.
The attempt in these things is always to try to give the audience a little bit of superior knowledge.
No, but that's exactly it. I mean, this is the wonderful thing is the audience is always smarter than our characters. It's great. They always know, don't go in the basement, don't go up the stairs, don't go here, don't go there. They're smarter than the characters, so it puts them into the into the picture. But of course, you still need them to be. You need the characters to be worth watching, not just dumb. Yes. I think Joel insisted on repeated cuts to that material, if I recall. Is that right, Joel?
I'm telling you, I'm not sure, Joe. It might have been you.
It might have been me. Yeah, it might have been me. I think Barney wrote that.
One of the few things I'm innocent of.
Yeah.
But I do remember these tapes were on, when they were on TV. And I do remember killing some time with them.
I'm pretty sure Barney specifically advised us to take this shot in this position.
I was always talking about upskirt photos. I was
Yes,
way ahead of my time.
That rant that Bruce does there went on for minutes. I mean, he was amazing, and it was really, really, it was really crude. I mean, what you see here is, sort of a tamest version of it. But I don't know. Maybe at some point the his full little piece might appear. Pretty colorful.
Is that a periodic elements chart on the wall?
I have no idea.
Those look like a periodic elements chart.
It may well be.
I think they've repealed that. Here's another thing you don't do in a horror movie. You don't kneel down.
You don't kneel down. Oh, this was really, really a difficult thing for us to figure out because, sort of inspired by The Exorcist, wanted to see the cold breath. But of course, we couldn't really work it out because we didn't have a refrigerated set and all. The guy is actually just breathing out. I mean, the solution was pretty low tech. He's breathing out cigarette smoke, but supposed to look like frozen breath. And the head twist. Now, the head twist is pretty interesting because we spent a lot of time casting Bruce's head and trying to have a false head. And Tom Savini, the special. There's another thing.
See, she was kneeling down.
Yeah, and she's lifted off the ground. But this is a very cool thing happened. The wardrobe department, really, really interesting thing happened here. Wardrobe department had put some kind of stud in that nurse's cap. Not realizing that she was going to be jammed against the stone wall of the set. The nurse's cap was stuck to her head after we did that effect, but she was okay. She was all right, but it was a close call. Close call. But I was saying about the head twist, the Tom Savini head twist. We ended up doing lots of shots, and Joel may remember this. If he were younger, he could remember this, I think. But the thing is, there were lots of shots set up to do that 360 head twist, and well, 180 head twist, I guess. But we didn't use them in the end. We actually had Jason grabs the real actor, twists him part way. Then we had the false head being twisted around some more, and then we have him grabbing the real actor again from the other side. And I think it's put together with just the shots of the real actor. It's was shortened for effectiveness. Joel, does that ring any bells to you, or this is
No,
this
it
is an
does.
alien
It
experience?
does. I remember really that almost all of the bloodletting and killing was shortened in various passes, but by frames at a time as we kept pitching it back to the MPAA for clearance.
You have to screen it for Motion Picture Association of America, and they'd always say, no, this is not suitable. You're not going to get we need an R rating to reach the greatest audience base, according to Paramount. And so Joel would like take one frame out of each of these special effects and send it back, and MPA would have to sit in the room and screen it again, for an hour and a half, and they'd say, no, what did you change? And they can't get into specifically telling you what to do. Although in the end, we had to take a lot out of most of the effects in order to preserve the actual death of Jason.
I think they wore us down and we wore them
Yeah,
mutually.
we could still be negotiating with them now if the release date didn't come out.
Was there at some time a splash of blood against the hospital room window in the door?
No, I never heard of any such thing. This is a dream you had at some point, Barney, long after the movie was made.
We had several passes at this just to make it work, and I think it does work because it made Crispin Glover a star.
Well, the thing about Crispin Glover in this, I mean, it's funny. It's 25 years after we did this. We sat around in rooms casting this, and in the spirit of cooperation between writers and directors that now prevails. Well, that didn't exist back then, and so Barney was not present during any of the casting. I have actually never asked him what he thought about the specific character by character casting of the piece.
Hell of a time to start.
No, it's okay. You can talk about it now. Let the fans hear it with us.
Yeah, my experience of making this movie is a tiny apartment on the east side of Manhattan, working through the night with Joe, making changes, writing things, listening to people from California telling us what to do. So I was never on the set. I was never part of the casting. One of the things I liked about the casting here, besides Crispin Glover and Corey Feldman, was that the gals in this, while sexy, did not look like they came out of high school for hookers. A lot of these movies have these airbrushed Playboy gals.
There's one.
This is by far my favorite scene in the movie.
No, we actually went to great pains in the casting. We saw hundreds of people. It was a really. I know people think that you just throw some friends into this and that's how these things happen. We saw lots of people for each of these roles.
I wanted to have a piece with what Joseph told me about making real people. You have to cast real people too. In a lot of these movies, that gal would be really pretty. We have a fat girl eating a banana.
I remember that the script was Fat Girl Eating a Banana. So this character was named Fat Girl, and then I asked Barney to do a, draft of the script where we didn't call her Fat Girl. So when we cast it, the actors coming in wouldn't see that they were coming up for the part of Fat Girl. So Barney does this and renames her and gives her a character name. So of course during casting, the casting director has it wrong and she has the wrong draft and she gives her the Fat Girl thing. And I try to, cover and I'm bluffing my way through it and she says, "That's okay. I know it's Fat Girl. That's what I came in for."
Oh, Mom, I thought we were having pizza. I thought so too, honey, but we've got a refrigerator full of leftovers.
This is a real house they're in. Part of the we had lots of crazy production ideas. See, Barney tells the story of us sitting in that little dark apartment, coming up with these things. But we came up with some things that were going to be, really devastating to production. We have an 11-year-old boy, and that's all kinds of problems come out of that because you have to have teachers on set and you can't really work at night and all this stuff. And we also have two houses in real proximity. We also have two houses in real proximity to each other. So the production found one real house that we could shoot in, which already was a crazy idea. I mean, people were living in that house and then just sort of stepped out so we could do this. The other house, which needed to be in real visual proximity so he can look out the door and see it, we built on the lot. That's this house. This is constructed.
By the way, the Jarvis family sandwich that just went by, that's an autobiographical sketch. I did that as a child, and I did it with my children when they were children. They were about, 8 or 10 years old at this time. You very rarely get to work autobiographically in a movie like this.
So there was, in fact, a Cohen family sandwich.
There was a Cohen family sandwich.
Yeah, there it is. I knew that, Barney. I could tell that from the scene. But yeah.
Can't make that stuff up.
So now the thing here about these two houses being at real proximity, which was a big production problem and an expense, we sort of never really linked them together, during most of the shooting till we got to the very end. And the DP, the director of photography, said to me, they're going to really be angry. We built this other house, and we've never connected it by a single shot. The other house could have been, in Passaic, New Jersey, for all anybody knows, because they were shot separately. So we did link them. There is one shot towards the end that links them together, and you'll see that when we.
I think that's a panning shot.
Yeah.
And I think, Joe, I actually at one point suggested that we tighten it up by eliminating the pan. And you said, "Are you crazy? This is the only shot that links these things. They'll kill me if I take this out."
That's right. There was no reason to build that house if we made that cut. Your cut. There would be no reason to build that house. There was this is very strange. I like this scene now, and I've seen it a number of times since. I haven't watched this film a whole lot since we made it, actually, but I remember thinking that we should take this scene out, and I don't know what I was thinking because I actually think it's very good for the characters now and very good for establishing them. But I think that we had conversations about possibly taking this out.
I usually shy away from writing women. And a lot of actresses who've been in subsequent movies of mine have said, you didn't really do very much with this part. And I usually say, yeah, but you're doing a great job with it. But the women in this, I think I kind of got.
Well, they're all very different, and it was really interesting in casting. It wasn't like just bringing a bunch of kids and just assign the roles to them in some random order. I mean, we really cast each one separately and carefully, and they played different characters. Now this is again, the houses that aren't really linked by camera, but in fact, Corey could see that house. But he didn't see what this that you're seeing here going on in the window. We didn't have Corey actually watch this. I mean, that's shots of Corey are done separately. There's no girl in the window, but he's just acting.
Yeah, but thematically it links the two houses.
Thematically, it links the two houses, but Corey never really saw that girl. He was really, really, really angry that he didn't get to see that because it was in the script like that. That's Judy Aronson. See, and again, the business of working with a child actor, we have to do many of his scenes in the daytime, making it appear to be night, because it's only a limited amount of time we're allowed to work with him in actual darkness.
Corey Feldman was really wonderful in this movie. But did you have trouble working with him?
No. I had absolutely no trouble working with him. The casting people and his representation said Corey was a real fan of Friday the 13th, and he really wanted to do this show, and he was just dying to do it because he was a fan of Friday the 13th. I have seen Corey since then, in other material where he's been interviewed, say that he hadn't seen the Friday the 13th, and he didn't know what it was about really. But he was just it was really actually it was a real joy because he was a kid, and he was a kid having fun there. It was terrific working with him. There was a group of Corey invited me to the Youth Academy Awards as his uh, chaperone. I brought him to it, and he was a presenter. And there's all these kids like Corey, his age, and they're all talking about they're not talking like kids. They're talking about their agents and their deals and upcoming things. But Corey was just a kid on this set. He wasn't. He was just a kid.
Comes across. The twins. Whenever somebody says to me, let's put twins in, I say no, but they're the twins anyway.
Yeah. So I asked for the twins. So in addition to like having Corey, going back to the story of production problems that Barney and I cooked up in the night in that apartment. Yeah, we put an 11-year-old boy in, and we put a dog in, which is another impossibility because you have to work with trainers and dogs and all that. We put twins in. We set it mostly at night, and we set it in the rain mostly at night, which was a giant production issue because you had to have rain towers everywhere, and actors were working wet.
But once it starts to rain in this movie, it rains pretty much continuously throughout.
Yeah. Actually, this skinny dipping scene has once again, Corey was not present. Didn't get to see this, and he was angry about it. But he wasn't really present when all of this was going on. Um, Yeah, everybody was sort of pretty cool with it. Crispin didn't want to take his boxers off, but I think he made it work better for the scene by
Yeah, that was his character.
yeah, it was his character.
Synchronized swimming.
This was the first material we shot actually. Um, so and all of this, none of this was done in. I can reveal to you that none of this was done in New Jersey, like the or Friday, the original Friday the 13th. This was entirely shot in California, um, though we reconstructed some things, but it was done all out in California.
I actually did not step foot on this set for the shoot for an instant. So where actually is this?
Oh, I don't have the slightest idea. I don't remember where we shot this thing.
Oh.
A lot of this was in Topanga Canyon in California because that's where the Friday house was. So we didn't travel far from it. Uh, we went to a location, I don't know, past Santa Barbara, a couple of hours away from the main location, in order to shoot the lake. But these pieces here probably were done. I can't remember where we did them, but they probably were done back in town.
And I do remember, speaking of the cold, that we were cutting in Hollywood and it was probably 80 degrees at least outside. And then occasionally I'd get a call from Joe to come up to the set in Topanga, usually about sunset. And I'd have a little short sleeved shirt on and there'd be frost on the ground.
It's really strange because it isn't really far from Hollywood, but it is so cold out there, and of course that's where we did all the wet down scenes. And
Of course, while you were talking, you missed another upskirt opportunity.
yeah, I know I did, but I didn't miss watching it, I'll tell you.
Oh, there we go.
It was really tough. I remember this was really tough to make this work editorially. We just didn't have. I mean, it's really my fault. I didn't really shoot enough material to sort of tell that story. I remember Joel was pretty. He had a bunch of crackpot things with reversing the direction of the bubbles and all of that to try to make it go. But in the end, that's what we have in the end. But it was some of these things that you see and they don't seem to be complicated or take most of our time, and the bigger production things really are easier.
But yet the false scare really, I think, works well because you don't know when you're going to have a false scare and when you're going to have a real one.
Yeah, because you did it a lot in this. It wasn't just, oh, it's the cat. Oh, it's not the cat. I think we did a solenoid thing in this because that was probably the only thing I knew about how to start a car.
No,
I had
nobody,
solenoid problems in my car.
nobody on location really knew how to do this. They just sort of faked this with sparks, and yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, see, this bond is formed with a tiny little bit where uh, the knife is pulled out of the boot, and Corey Feldman just does a little take at the knife. This guy's cool. That was Zito. I don't think I wrote that.
This room is filled with actually the work of the special effects people, the real stuff that they had, laying around, that they had done, and we gave it, ultimately we used them as props for Tommy. But you can really get a sense of how small this little house in Topanga is. It's sort of a crazy location to use as a film location. Try to put the whole crew and heavy equipment and lighting in these little rooms, and especially to do the kinds of things we're doing with machetes flying and all of that stuff going on. It was very, very tough to do it in this house. And even the house we built, which when it was designed, was a big place that would be very production friendly, kept getting cut back for budget. So by the time we, got the house that was built, it was even tighter than this. So we were working in impossibly tight quarters. I had a chance recently to go back into this house, to see it again, and to remember where, not this house, the one we were just in before. And there still are machete dings in the walls. I mean, there literally are machete dings from that shoot. Yeah. Now I wish I wish I could say that yeah, I directed Crispin to dance like that, or that Barney had written that dance somehow magically into the script. But this is just what you get with Crispin, because it's a really cool experience working with him, because you never really know what you're gonna find. Now, somebody told me that this nutty dance, I mean, Crispin was actually dancing like this in clubs in Hollywood at this time. That's his dance that he did. It was not something that we. I wish we could take credit for it, but it was just him. We decided to use a period music, you know, music from the '40s and the like. Um, just, I mean, I think it did something unusual to the scenes where we used it. It wasn't what you would normally find these kids dancing to.
Well, I think they had found these records in the house that they had rented.
Yeah, that was the idea. So we're linking period. They find old films, they find old music, but it's sort of nice to watch them drop into that other period. Now Barney had written uh, a lot of stuff about all this high tech equipment that Rob, the Jason Hunter, would have with him. That's why he's carrying that all these big cases and things. He's got tents, but he also has this high tech stuff where he can detect movement and infrared binoculars and all of that. And it was actually a pretty cool idea. I mean, this is something I don't know if I've ever told Barney this. The reason that it's not in the film, and you don't see Rob using all of that stuff, has strictly to do. This was not a creative, argument and discussion about, the quality of the concept. The props just looked so crappy when they were delivered that I just didn't want to shoot them, and so that whole thing is removed from the. So Rob is just out there with a gun. This was a very hard scene to shoot, and I sort of got in trouble, as a director, because it took a long time to do this with all the reverses and trying to get this right. It was something that on the page you would have thought, could have gone very, very quickly, but in order to make that work and get the coverage, it just took us a long time. Never a great idea to go out for a swim at night in a Friday the 13th movie. Never a great idea.
You don't see shorts like that anymore.
Well, it's hard for us to, both admit to this and imagine it, but it's 25 years ago that these actors would, dancing.
That changing of the baseball hat from the guy to the gal was a big thing with Zito. We have to use the baseball hat. Put the hat on the girl. It was sort of an exchange for precious bodily fluids.
Oh my God, I certainly do not remember using that phrase.
No, but you did use the hat.
I know, I like that.
Oh, you know why she's not? Because he's not wearing the hat.
That's it. This scene. I mean, Judy was such a trooper. It's absolutely unimaginable. It was so freezing, and what makes it worse is the entire crew. I remember, script supervisors had a big, winter coat on, and everybody had gloves and hats on, and Judy Aronson ended up having nothing on. We had.
This is a lot of smoke and fog machines, right,
This is
Joe?
fog machines hanging on it's actually a reservoir. So just, when you drink water in California, just think about this. Judy was in that water, along with Jason. It took many hours to shoot this. This is not, you're watching a 2-minute scene, but it took many hours to shoot this, and we were on the shore with long lenses, for the most part. We were out there as well in a boat, but mostly, you know, we were dressed for it. We did a full body casting of Judy naked, and to use in the special effect. Now, this is one of the scenes that was really cut the most during for the release, for the theatrical release, because this is one that was just so horrific. Um, the Tom Savini effect was just so awful with her screams, and it went on and on and on. And Joel remember, we had really long versions and then shorter and shorter and shorter versions, and what ended up was I had always hoped that we could have a little bit more of it on screen, because it was so chilling in its longer form. And I hope you know there it is, coming out of her back. Now that went on and on. You can actually see the jump in the cut. Yeah, there is another thing that, pretty much if you're in a Friday the 13th movie and your girlfriend has gone out before you really ought to write her off, not go out and look for her, because it's not going to turn out well.
And here's the hat again.
Yeah, that is the golden lucky hat. If you get it, you sort of get it. Crispin's performance really helped us in this movie. I mean, he's so watchable, and he just really you have to watch him when he's on the screen. For me, I just think he's great and so detailed.
And it's interesting how the movie business works. When you look at some of these older, low budget movies, you can see the people that rose, the people that stood out.
Well, Crispin was known at the time. I mean, to casting people, and Corey was known because Corey had done some movies where he was, he was reasonably, well known. I mean, he wasn't, he didn't have the body of work that he ended up with, later. But he had done some things, so those people knew him, and they certainly, they endured.
Don't you hate when your flip flops get like that?
Yeah, but there's something coming up that's even more loathsome, though. Well, this music, as I said, this was all tracked from previous Friday the 13th, but I think Joel did a wonderful job, you know, making sure that it worked for the scenes that we use it in, and we really very carefully edited it to help the scenes pay off, and it's not that easy to do for a movie like this.
It has a nice sense of foreboding.
That again is the real Judy having to lay out there forever while we're shooting this stuff. Now it's one thing getting a knife that goes through your body and comes out your back, but getting a spear in the groin is, really something you really have to try to avoid if you can.
What I liked about this was the strength of Jason to lift him that high on the end of a spear, because it sets up the final fight that you're up against somebody who's not just bigger than you because you're Corey Feldman, is up against some kind of semi-Superman.
Yeah, we always wanted to be sure to show how strong he was, what damage he could do, physical damage he could do, bending the barrel of a rifle, breaking through a door, so that he remains that fear object.
If we could only harness him for good.
And here you'll see some of Jason's capabilities. He's destroyed the contents, broken the rifle, bent the barrel, and sort of just messed up in general. But that business of showing the strength of the villain, and also the reality of the weapon. Tom Savini always talked about the reality of the weapon. In other words, make sure that you have the knife ching against something, that it hits before you use it, so the audience feels its reality.
Don't take off that hat.
This is very, very strange, this scene. Now, now, Barney may have a different recollection of this, but I believe this was not written, and that bed just actually collapsed in the shooting. That's my memory.
Well, in an odd kind of presaged autobiographical way, I was in an
In a
inn.
motel, yeah.
I was in an inn with my wife at a ski
This is
chalet
gonna
kind of
get
place,
dirty, I know.
and the bed did that.
And the bed
Just at
collapsed.
the right time too, but I didn't have my hat on.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah, I argue for this, I remember, because I am a big fan of this old pornography, this old black and white stuff.
No, but I like that we have this in the. I like that we have this in the film. It was an argument actually with, producers and the studio, not because they didn't want to have the porno. They just, it was something, I don't know, just had a creative objection to it. But Crispin really, I think, appreciated this scene more than many of the others in the. In fact, as I recall, he visibly appreciated this scene, if you understand.
You understand?
Of course, that's not in the cut, and probably not in any cut.
That's funny you mention about the houses not being next to each other, because in a subsequent movie, because of this movie, I argued that the two houses had to be side by side, and I drove everybody crazy until we actually found a location that had two houses side by side.
Well, they're really side by side here too, because we had to build it, so they were, but they are side by side. We spent a lot of time talking about the both the kills and the specific weapons that I remember when I first came into the office in Frank Mancuso Jr.'s office. They had laid out. I mean, there must have been more than 100 weapons, implements of the hacksaw and knives and machetes and things that Jason could pitchforks and things that Jason could possibly use. And I was used to low budget filmmaking where, you the script would say a knife and you might see two or three knives and pick one. So it was very, very strange. I mean, it was in a way it was so tight and so the budgets were so limited, and yet there was great attention paid to that kind of propping and also what the kills would be. Endless conversations about how to kill the twin in shadow only, how to kill the various characters. Barney and I worked on a lot of this stuff before production, but some of it was worked on and revised during production by everybody, by producers and special effects people. Once we had assembled the full special effects team, they were full of suggestions and good ones.
But I do remember that we started with and kept honing and honing the wine pull scene, where the corkscrew goes into
Yeah,
various body parts.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was something we had conceived of in the earliest drafts of the script.
Well, when Joe first hired me to do this, I had never seen a Friday the 13th film. But that week there was a triple feature playing across town, so I went across town to watch all three of the first, Friday, Friday 2, Friday 3, and 3D. And I was heading back home in the cab when I realized I had closed my eyes at all of the hits, and I had to tell the cab driver to turn around and go back to the theater. When I watched him a second time, keeping my eyes open all the way through.
There you go, a true fan watching every film twice on opening day. It's not quite opening day, is it?
No.
All of this rain effect. You can see the great curse, to production was that there were so many windows in this house. It's a little house, and they made it feel bigger by having windows everywhere. So of course we had to create rain everywhere, even for the reflections. So you can't see it well, on every version. But yeah, all these windows had to have rain towers or hosing or something to make it all work. Fans have sort of taken me to task on this this scene. But we did it this way because I didn't think we really ought to show graphic. I know I can almost hear the boos from fans who are watching a DVD now, but I didn't think we ought to do a graphic a kill on mom. Uh, I think that the important thing for us here in terms of the kills, and I don't want to talk about this like it's some high science because it most assuredly is not. But the thing is, we tried to be very extreme in some of the way that Jason's victims got it, and we alternated that with sort of very tame versions, so that you never could be quite sure what you were going to see. And I mean, the theory was that it might have more impact when something really was horrific, that it could sort of eye pop you a little better than if we just numbed you out by gruesome poke after gruesome poke. Joe, do you remember a scene that we did not use that involved Mrs. Jarvis, the mom? Um,
Did you film that, or was that lost in script stage?
I went through this and I can't really remember, and I know this sounds like a joke that forgotten whether or not you filmed something because when you work on the project, the script is so real and you see everything that I feel like we might have filmed it, but I don't remember being on the set filming it. I can sort of see the images of it, but I don't know if it ever existed. In any case, it not only is it not in the film, but I think it's a good idea for it to not be in the film. So I just think it wasn't necessary to tag that. It takes you sort of out of the story of Trish and Tommy's dilemma now, and that's what it really needs to be here. Poor Kimberly, wet down in a sort of tame wet T-shirt version of what we might have done had we not been so supervised, or rather, had she been willing. This was a struggle in production because it was really almost impossible to shoot this scene because they didn't want to pay for a big enough tent. So, I know it's crazy. I mean, it was like $150 more for the right size tent to shoot this. So the cameras are so close all the time. Maybe it ended up working for us, but mostly you got the cameras right up their noses because the tent wasn't big enough. Even though, of course, we split it, to shoot.
Isn't there a scene in this where wasn't it just that scene where Kimberly goes through the stuff and realizes that the Jason Hunter is the brother of a former victim?
Now we have that.
That's still to come.
Yeah, the thing is that the fans have busted us on this inconsistency because the fact is it doesn't completely make sense because it's supposed to have taken place on the night of,
Yeah.
and therefore how did that happen? But I
Well,
don't know. We let it fly like that.
I get a lot of email on Tommy Jarvis and how his aging through the movies changes and is incorrect. And I normally write back, leave me alone.
No, but aging through the movies is sort of like not on us. This is on our watch. I
Yeah.
mean, this is directly on our watch. But so yeah, we did it. We did it. Sorry. Uh, Crispin also is pretty cool here with his great success, unlikely success. I don't mean as an actor now.
We know what you mean.
and his bragging scene that's
See,
coming up.
this stuff's great.
Well, really, it's used as just really as a distraction, so that you can sort of.
It's innocent merriment.
It's innocent merriment that's going to be, Jeff. It's another autobiographical piece from Barney's past, I suppose.
Several times.
Yeah. Which character were you, Barney?
I'm a little bit of all of these guys. This is in case you didn't get it in the previous scene where he pulled the thing out and put it on the table.
Yeah.
But it fits together. There you go.
Yeah. Crispin was totally freaked about how we were going to do these things. I mean, I think, thought he was going to be in physical danger. They really were going to, the machete was going to come at him, and not the machete, the blade was going to come at him, and the corkscrew would go into his hand. He really wanted to explain carefully, but he was very, very, he's very good in the execution of it.
In an early draft of this script, it's the blade that pins him, and the corkscrew goes into his head, and then we sort of flip to X-ray, and we see the corkscrew go into his skull.
Yeah, I like the corkscrew in his hand, nailing him in that way, because it was really something. It was just so odd. It was so strange. I've actually used that blade in the hand in a later movie, pinning somebody down, and yeah, instead of weaponry, we tried to do some other things here. I'm pulling the girl out of the window right through the glass and dropping her onto a car. That's done with all cannons inside the car, to blow out the windows at the time time of impact. You could see it's actually was a second take. That was a stunt woman we threw out, and I wasn't like that happy with the first impact, so we threw her out again. Here's a scene.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, that's the one you're searching for.
And you're absolutely right. This makes no sense. And full disclosure, I knew it made no sense at the time.
Yeah,
but I was tired. It was late at night.
No, come on, Barney. The fact is, it worked. We thought it worked in a way. But the thing is, we thought it worked in a way because it really gave you the physical proof, and you had the physical sketch, and it was important to have that, in your hand because it tied into the ending so well. So we sort of cheated and bluffed it through.
It's the magic of film.
Yeah. Now I was trying to direct the reverses here, like where the light would go, and I'd say, a little over to the left, and then down a little, and then up a little, and finally the cinematographer said, "Why don't you just take the damn flashlight and do it yourself?" So that's me holding the flashlight, and you don't see me, but you see, what you see with the traveling flashlight is me.
That's very good, Joe.
I was excellent. I really, I've
Beautiful.
used this in the rest of my career. I use this in every movie. Flashlight held by me in reverse.
This really should be in the credits.
I'll consider adding it in upcoming. Oh, there you are, Barney's misspent youth revealing itself again.
Joe's right. That character is mostly me.
Now this is that's Peter and Barbara, the actors, in this shot, but the shot through the glass, the wide shot through the glass, because Barbara didn't want to be naked in the shower. Is somebody else that got hired who, yeah, that ain't Barbara's, sorry guys, that is not Barbara's butt. That's somebody that I think, and I really don't want to say the wrong thing here, but that was some kind of worker in, that industry that got drafted in there butt press the glass.
You know, we've all done this several times, used body doubles like this. I don't understand the actor's point of view on this. If the audience thinks it's you, it's you.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't her in that shower with 120 crew working with her. So this was an important kill to me because I thought it was sort of interesting.
Yeah, this one, the corkscrew, the kill in the basement.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It wasn't a kill that we didn't want to do, but said there's some that I like more than others. Yeah, there's some that I think are just better ideas than others. But they were all ours, and we sort of have to take responsibility for them. I mean, and can't squirrel out of the ones that don't work as well as the others. But I still have my favorites, and yeah, those Jimmy's corkscrewed hand and the blade through the screen and an upcoming one in a basement. I think those are probably my favorites. And of course, Jason gets it in a sort of interesting way. There was he's singing Tangerine, an old 40s Mercer tune, in the shower. And Frank Mancuso Jr., the producer, came to me and said, "Okay, so what do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, it'd be great if he sang the Elvis Presley thing." But in the end, we waited back and forth, and it was my call to put Tangerine instead of the Elvis Presley one. I subsequently, regret it sort of because I think the Elvis one might have been better, but there was a certain, it's issue of responsibility, which, you know, uh, which prevailed. But in any case, the kills that don't use a lot of sophisticated weaponry, the corkscrew is cool, and it's just a knife that comes through the screen, but you don't really, mostly just seeing the actor slide down. Those are cool. The girl flying out the window, I like. This, but pretty face of Peter Barton being broken and smashed, against the tile. So it's not the traditional Jason just with the machete. He does his best work in this film, and using other implements or no implement at all, just the big ugly Jason hand, which is the hand of Ted White with some fake fingernails stuck on it.
I kind of like Tangerine. She's sort of a Tangerine kind of girl.
They were dancing to Tangerine, and I wanted Tangerine because I always liked it somehow. It was weird, and there also was a dirty version of it, I think, that at the time. This was a kill that got decided on just the last moment. I never, it's a weird thing. It was one of those things that we just never got to. We just didn't figure out every single one, and because ideas had gotten rejected for one reason or another, difficulty of execution, time. So that's how she gets it. Every time we had to do the slightest bit of damage in this house, there was a big, meeting about it because they'd have to pay for a replacement window. Or I remember there was a lot of time spent on I want to break a lamp and pay for that. And it really is hard to imagine how tight the budgets, were. Um, but anyhow, I will say to the credit of producers that I was always allowed to do the stuff that I wanted to do in here. Ted White was sort of probably still, angry about the idea that he had to stand in the rain. All you see are those hands, but nobody had hands like Ted. So
Joe, I think here is the
yeah,
famous shot.
yeah. Well, yeah, not exactly. It's There it is. There it is. One shot that proves that both houses are on the same piece of real estate.
But you know, looking at that, Joe, it
We
was
really
right to
need
keep it, and we needed it. No, I think it was right.
You really want to cut it now, don't you?
No,
You
no,
wish you could get
I'm
up there.
really glad that it wasn't cut. That was a bad call on my part.
Oh, you want to cut it even now. I know it.
No, no, I love it.
And there was another shot that ties them together at the end, but we had an accident in executing it because of the rain and the slippery mud every place. Steadicam operator slipped and went down and destroyed his Steadicam, so it became the last shot of the day that I think sort of links them together. One other shot.
You know, starting from this sequence now, Joe kept hammering away at me on don't do scenes where the audience is going to stand up and say, "Don't go in the basement, you stupid person." He could give them choices so that half the audience is yelling at the other half. And I think we managed to do that in the end here, where there are choices to go this way, go that way, do this, do the other thing.
But we send them the wrong direction, a couple of times. I mean, we send them upstairs instead of outdoors. With this tiny little knife, and it's deliberately a tiny little knife because we know Jason's got something way worse for sure. So that fans will start screaming and saying, "Don't be such a jerk to go in there. There's the distraction rat." Hollywood rat, of course, brought by the rat wrangler, who was also the dog wrangler who handled Gordon, the dog, named after a recently deceased dog of a friend of mine. So he got the name. But Gordon was a trained dog who had to do some stuff he didn't really want to do, but he was a trooper and did it. Yeah, Gordon jumps through that window. It's not glass, guys. We didn't hurt the dog in any way, but Gordon does jump through that window, and there's a whole lot of stuff that I've seen and heard about whether Gordon was thrown or jumped through the window. I'm not. At one point, they wanted to be sure that you saw that Gordon was okay, and there was a shot of him running off. There were calls, we got from Boston and from other places about that, but we didn't do the shot of him running off, and I, I think I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he's. I mean, I know what I wanted him to be, but I'm not sure that when you look at it, that it feels like he's thrown out the window. It would have been cool for me if he was thrown out the window, but it sort of looks like a jump, doesn't it?
I think if he was thrown out the window, people would have closed us down.
Well, that's why it was discreet in any case. But I like the idea of him being thrown out the window. Yeah, ran off and left them on their own.
I never thought of character issues for Gordon. If Gordon comes out that window butt first, well, then it's one thing. If he's escaping, that's another thing.
No, he's nose out.
Yeah, certainly no Lassie.
This, I think, is inspired by the blood in Taxi Driver, actually. Blood on the floor like that on this, crummy linoleum. No, it was not in there. Ah, the stair breaking, getting stuck in the stair. Drops the knife and goes for the knife, so the audience, of course, would ask him not to. Now, now you. This is actually, I think, my favorite kill in the movie, and you really don't see anything, but the horrible screaming and he's killing me, he's killing me. It's just so awful. Now, see, I remember this is what happens when you review the stuff 25 years after the fact. I mean, we have different recollections of how this all unfolded. I remember reading something at the time in the newspaper in New York about someone who was being murdered on the street. Ah, yes, the grab through the stairs. That's why we had Rob drop through the stairs, and the actual cut on Jason's hand. Yeah, and someone being murdered on the street, begging someone to stop stabbing them, stop stabbing me, stop hurting me, stop killing me, and that's how that ended up in Rob's dialogue, as far as I can remember. Because I know I talked to Eric Anderson, the actor, about that news story because it was so horrible. As you can see, Jason is a bit of a decorator. I mean, he doesn't just. But it's an interesting quality that Jason actually uses the bodies to psychologically torment the victim. So it's not just he goes around and stabs you. He's getting smarter as the movies go on, and he's strategizing. He crucifies that body so that they'll find it and will manipulate the characters. I've told this story before, and I guess yes, the ripping the hand off, but using these little nails. I was criticized for having her use these tiny little nails, and of course we deliberately had her use those little nails so that the audience would say, "What are you doing, dumbass? Using those tiny little nails?" This That was really tough. We threw him through that window a few times, and I've heard Corey speak about this scene too. Uh, Corey was actually, I mean, the actual Corey was terrified during that, and I like the idea of the hammer against the hockey mask, the sound of it, pounding it right into Jason's face. It was like so lewd and so awful. This exploding door. I mean, we didn't really. I'm happy with the way it ultimately turned out. I mean, on the first takes, he sort of just shouldered it and opened the door with his, mask against the shoulder. But finally, they got it right, and he just blows the thing up, like, coming through it forcefully. I've seen some things written about the lack of continuity of those toys in that case, and I think that if that's what we're looking at, we didn't really do our jobs. That, no doubt, is something that never occurred to us during the show. I know, no, I know. I realize that's just me and you talking. Um, well, there seems to be a shortwave radio behind these guys here, behind Tommy and Trish. It was never something scripted, as far as I can remember. I think it was probably the prop guys' creative effort to influence us to use it as as a dramatic element, and rewrite and use the prop and turn it into something important. But we ignored it, so it just sits there as a giant red herring. If Oh yeah, I always, or almost always, destroy a television set in every movie I make, or a computer screen or something like that. And I pretty much always have somebody coming out of the water with, like a big machine gun or a knife or something. So I don't know what any of that means, but there it is, and it continues to be.
This is another horror movie classic coming up, the stepping over the body.
Yeah, the stepping over the body is not a great idea in scary movies, but I think the interesting thing here, she's got to take the chance, and she's got to go first. But now Jason has to make a choice. And that's what's interesting. That he could go for the kid, but he goes for her. Now, say what you will about Barney's predispositions, but nonetheless, Jason chases the girl, and as it should be. This was the, well, I think that might have been the shot where the Steadicam went down. Now there was a lot of conversation, and some of it not that pleasant, about the speed with which Jason should move. It was the position of producers that Jason should move Frankenstein-like. That he moves slowly, and he is this sort of lumbering beast. But I wanted him to surprise us and run. And I've read things about that. Listen, you got to forgive me. This is actually how she fell. This is not some, weird thing that we just did. It's really the way she dropped.
Best scene in the movie.
Yeah, your favorite scene, I understand. But it really is how she dropped, and there was not enough time to drop her another time to get another thing, so we went with that.
The other interesting thing about that stunt is that we had a bunch of different cameras covering it and lots of coverage. We tried versions where it was cut with different angles, and it just seemed so much more convincing and affecting as a single shot.
Yeah,
because you really knew it actually happened just as you're seeing it.
That's interesting. The overhead shot that you see there is, it's slowed down. It's an editorial, post-production process, an editorial choice. It actually came out of the argument about how fast Jason should move. But, and I was in favor of him being able to move quickly, and, studio wanted him to move slower. So we tried that to accommodate them. But then when we saw it, everybody liked it, for different reasons, because it's just so creepy. Now to split hand. Oh yes, the shaving of the head. Corey and Corey's representation, didn't want him to actually shave his head. So, Joel, you remember this?
Yes, I remember at the time there was some concern whether we would be able to find a kid who would want to shave his head and whose parents would let him. But Topanga, where it was shot at the time, was filled with motorcycle enthusiasts. And I believe there was hundreds of kids to choose from.
Everybody would offer up their kid for a few bucks, and you can shave his head all you like.
And the kids thought it was the coolest thing to be in a Friday the 13th.
And in fact, some kid, has got his head being shaved in Friday the 13th, and Corey is wearing a, one of those bald caps. Now Tommy reasons with Jason, reminds him of things, a different Jason from what we had seen before, where you could actually, talk some sense into this thing. Also regarding Ted, who played Jason, I mean, he was great because he really encouraged Kimberly to really go after him, and she was really beating the hell out of him. He didn't want it to look fake, and yes, the unmasking of Jason after all these years.
This was a key scene to me because when they told me that this had to be, the film grammar had to say this is really the end of Jason, the first thing I said to Joe is, well, then you have to take his mask off. You have to kill him as a man, not as a creature.
And this has been critically important that we took his mask off, and it became a major point for the film. And I fought for Tom because I thought that Tom had created the original Jason appearance, and I prevailed, and Tom came aboard. It wasn't so much that they didn't want Tom, but they had somebody else at that point. That's lots of people are operating Jason at that point. Operating the tongue, operating the head, the knife. I mean, it's a team of people all off screen there.
Now, here's something I don't know about this scene, Joe, and I'm asking you.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be hit directly on the crown of his head, splitting his head open down the middle like an artichoke. And then we went away from that. Is that because at that point, they had decided now there's going to be a sequel?
No, no. They never, ever revealed there was going to be a sequel. In fact, the only, glimmer of thought about a sequel was mine, where I have that look of Tommy at the end, thinking maybe, they'll want to do more movies, even though they swore to us they wouldn't. So there was never a conversation about a sequel. No, it was just that there were different deaths that were auditioned for Jason. Now this, Corey has said that he thought that he wouldn't even be able to lift this machete, but the reality of the moment prevailed. This was an amazing thing to watch in theaters. That whiteout, which we did here. I remember being in the Low State Theater in New York and seeing 1,000 people on their feet dancing and cheering, shouting "Die, die, die," and seeing them in silhouette against that white. It was the most horrific thing in a way, because what it did was, I mean, it really showed you the power of the movie, of those movies. Corey was chopping up a bunch of sandbags, which also irritated the studio because they cost a few bucks a piece. But he was chopping up a bunch of sandbags. No Ted White, no Jason, no nothing.
And I think the camera was behind a big plexiglass shield.
So that we didn't get chopped up as well, because we didn't trust Corey,
With the wet machete.
the wet machete.
And because this was the end, we go back to the beginning where Adrian King was in the bed.
Yeah.
But instead of seeing the kid come up out of the lake, she sees him come in through the door.
And we spent a lot of time figuring out how to freeze the last frame. He really just. But it's actually only in the shooting of this, only during the actual shooting, the moments that we shot this, that it occurred to me to try to keep the ending open. But we would never ask to do that, and there was never any conversation about future Fridays. Not in my, certainly not in my presence. We thought he was dead. I remember seeing being at the screening of the final cut, where it was just us and the producers, and we sat there and watched it. And I don't think anybody was really sure about how it was going to work before audiences. So it was actually thrilling to see it before a real audience, which is only days after we finished it that it was before audiences. And I, going into a theater and watching the response to it, because it played in houses with 1,000 people there, who had waited on long lines to get in on opening day, and I mean, it was great. Everything, that was sort of, we just watched, and because we were familiar with it and bored with it by then, we saw audiences scream about and do all the things we wanted them to do about it. It was just a great experience seeing that in the theater.
I actually didn't see the movie until about 10 years later because, it was finished. I was on to other things. But when it opened up on a Friday the 13th, which is, I think, why you were rushing everything to get it ready for a Friday the 13th opening. My wife and I were living on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. We said, let's go out and see it. We had to go to 4 different theaters trying to get in, couldn't get into any of them. Wound up going home, forgetting about it.
Well, thanks so much. It's actually been interesting for us to watch the thing again after all this time, and I hope it worked for you guys as well.